Welcome back, everyone, to your last lecture video for Gender and Crime. I hope that you have enjoyed this the best that we can do with given our circumstances. I certainly wish things had worked out differently, but it is what it is, and I hope that y'all have still enjoyed it and still learned something. So, to end our semester, we're going to discuss pregnancy behind bars, and this is a complicated topic that I should note is ever evolving and changing. There are a lot of people that are fighting for reform, so it is possible that some of what is in here may have changed or may change in the next week, 2 weeks, month. Okay, so if you are down the road and you want to discuss this with somebody, you should double check that laws and the status of things have not changed. So before we go any further, how many pregnant women are behind bars? Well, it's about 3 to 10% of female inmates. So recall that there's a small portion of inmates that are women to begin with, and then a very small portion of those are pregnant. However, that's still about 2,000 women that give birth while incarcerated. So there's some important caveats about their pregnancy because they are indeed still inmates. So pregnant mothers have to wear belly chains the same way that all women that are in transport are required. Right, so for most inmates, they're transporting to the court or a hospital, and they will be required to wear a belly chain during that. For expecting inmates, this also includes their transport for any prenatal care. So they might be going to see a gynecologist or an OBGYN, and they're required to wear their belly chain while in transport. Some are even required to wear it while being examined or while in labor, and this can be particularly humiliating. And this is one of the, in particular, this is the point that I mentioned at the start of the video, that this is changing and evolving quickly. So this may not be entirely accurate anymore, but I looked around, and for the most states, this is the case. Okay. So there's some optional childbirth classes that are offered at many prisons, many women's prisons, I should say. And although the reality is that some prisons simply just don't have the resources to offer such classes. And where they are offered, they're taken as a group, which it really offers camaraderie among the women and gives them some sort of support system, right? Because prison can be a very isolating time, and if they don't have a friend or family member to lean on, it's scary. Any person that's pregnant, whether or not they're incarcerated, it's scary. I've had many friends that have been pregnant, and they really rely on the people in their life that have already had children or are pregnant as well. And so for these women behind bars, they really lean on each other, and it can be really beneficial for them and for their pregnancy. Right, so the key about their education is that they are taught about the difference between expectations and reality. Okay, we're talking about the expectations about childbirth, about the rest of their pregnancy, about parenting, what will happen if they deliver while still behind bars, if they get out and then deliver. Many of them have it in their mind that I'm going to have this baby, and this baby is going to change everything, and I'm going to be a good mom, and I'm going to get it together, and I'm going to do right by my child. And they may really feel that way, but they are still operating within a system where there are constraints on their ability to actually do that. And so it's important that they understand that just because you have a baby doesn't suddenly make your conviction go away. Right, so these educational classes also serve as a form of group therapy. Okay, and they often include a substance abuse piece because so many women, including those that are pregnant, are suffering from some sorts of substance abuse problem. So many of these pregnant women have serious substance abuse problems, and as a result, they're typically housed in the medical wing. Why might that be? Well, it's important to note that it's not simply because of their pregnancy, but because they are experiencing withdrawal, right? And then they're going to be going through recovery. And this can be potentially dangerous for a baby, right? Going cold turkey can actually kill the fetus because the fetus is also addicted and can go through withdrawal. And that withdrawal can be powerful enough to terminate the pregnancy. So it's really important that they carefully monitor the woman as she's going through through withdrawal and recovery. So caring for the mom and baby, right? Well, it's important to note that not all prisons have prenatal care. So they might have to be transported to and from the hospital. They might have to go to another facility. But most prisons actually allow the baby to stay with her mom behind bars for some time. Now, that might be a day, that might be a week, but there is a little window, right? This depends on prison policies, the severity and nature of the crime that the mother committed, the mother's substance abuse status, whether or not she's gotten clean or she's still struggling. And, in general, prisons rarely offer postpartum depression screening, meaning that the mothers often endure significant psychological trauma after the pregnancy, and there's little postnatal care for her. And the women behind bars are at a much higher risk of postpartum depression and other postnatal woes. So looking at delivery, in particular, many women are handcuffed during delivery, and all are handcuffed about 30 minutes after delivery. So some states have now lifted this. This is another one of those things. This and the belly chains are the two policies that have been under much scrutiny and much debate. So this may evolve and change, and hopefully it will. It seems critics argue that a pregnant woman in delivery isn't going to go anywhere, right? She quite literally cannot go anywhere. However, supporters argue that she could be faking, her going into delivery, her contractions, in order to escape, because this would be the perfect time for her to get away. And when more would she want to escape than when she's about to have a baby, right? So, however, at the time that I last checked this, so as of about a week ago, 32 states have no legislation restricting shackling of pregnant women. So that is, there's 18, which is a minority, right? So women must labor alone. They cannot have a family member or friend accompanying them, with the exception of one or more guards that are present. So there is a guard in the room watching them. And now, in some cases, there are certainly stories of guards that have grown quite close to the women and that are very compassionate and kind and understanding. But as you might imagine, there's also the flip side of that, right, where they're very cold and, detached. Right? So they might have a birthing coach, but they are limited in their interaction with them. In particular, the birthing coach and their interaction is prior to the delivery. So the due date is usually unknown to the mother, right? So if she went to the doctor prior to her incarceration, they may have given her an estimate of about when she was due. And other than that, that's all that she has. This is done specifically to prevent her from escaping, right? Because if you know that when you're due, then you may plan to get out before then, right? So if a C-section is needed, the mother will be told, hey, you're going to need a C-section for delivery. But she will not be told when, and she'll only be notified of this when the C-section is occurring on the date that it is scheduled to occur. So they must be out of the hospital 24 hours after delivery for vaginal birth. So for many, this means leaving their baby. And the bonding during this time is very much encouraged, because this could be used to potentially encourage the mother to stay out of crime. Remember how much you loved your baby? Remember how great that felt to hold your child? Well, if you stay out of crime, if you act right here, then you can get out and be with that your son or daughter. Right? So, okay, the baby's born. Then what? Well, they may breastfeed if the prison is near the baby's residence. Now, to be sure, they are not actually going to be nursing the baby directly, but they will be pumping the milk to then store and give to either the fostering or adopting family. Now, the key here is that it requires access to a pump, a breast pump, and unfortunately, many prisons simply don't have that. And of note here, guys, after 2 years, no matter what, most states, terminate parental rights of the mother after 2 years. So if you have 1 year and 11 months left in your sentence, you can get out and still get your child back. But if you have 2 years and 1 month, you're going to lose your right to your child. And very few of these mothers and children are admitted to prison nurseries. And this is largely because there's very few prison nurseries. But what are prison nurseries? Well, so some prisons have essentially a big room that is made for babies. So some are set up so that the babies stay in one room and the mothers stay in others, but most of them are set up so that there's a crib in the mother's cell. So the mother has a cell to herself and her baby stays with her. And this can be quite powerful for these women, right? They are actually getting to still raise their children. They're getting to still be involved in their infant's life. And in case and if you haven't taken any developmental psychology classes, those first 2 years are essential for a child's development, right? They develop a lot of how they understand and attach and bond to other people begins in those first 2 years. But there's very limited spots available in these nurseries. They must have they must have been convicted for nonviolent crime. They absolutely have no record of child abuse, and they must be about 18 months from release, right? Because of what I mentioned in terms of losing your parental rights. Now, of note, y'all, recidivism rates for women who complete the nursery program is 4.3 for a new offense. So 4.3% of them commit a new offense, and about less than 10% violate their parole. For the population as a whole, it is about 66.6%. So this suggests that nurseries are effective in reducing a mother's likelihood of committing a new crime.